One of the most remarkable supernatural events in the Bible is the ascension of Elijah. And while it may seem that only ancient prophets get to experience such miraculous manifestations, all of God's children can receive their own prophetic call through sacred ordinances. At the end of a long ministry of miracles, Elijah crossed the river Jordan with his successor Elisha and was taken up into heaven by a chariot of fire and horses. But this miraculous departure of Elijah was also the beginning of Elisha's story. This episode served as Elisha's prophetic call. When they were gone over, that Elijah said unto Elisha, "Ask what I shall do for thee before I be taken away from thee." And Elisha said, "I pray thee, let a double portion of thy spirit be upon me." When Elisha asked for a double portion, what he was asking for was a birthright portion of Elijah's spirit and power over all of Elijah's other followers. The firstborn son of a family received an inheritance twice the size of the other sons, so that the firstborn son could take care of his parents and unmarried sisters in their old age. Elisha essentially asked to be Elijah's prophetic firstborn son over the other disciples. Elijah left this decision in the Lord's hands based on what Elisha could see. If Elisha's spiritual eyes were open so that he could see Elijah's ascension, then God would grant him that birthright portion of the Spirit. And it came to pass, as they went on and talked, that behold, there appeared a chariot of fire and horses of fire, and parted them both asunder. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. And Elisha saw it, and he cried, my father, the chariot of Israel and the horsemen thereof. And he saw him no more, and he took hold of his clothes and rent them in two pieces. He took up also the mantle of Elijah that fell from him. This divine manifestation of the hosts of heaven served as Elisha's prophetic call because he witnessed the opening of heaven and an induction into what is known as the divine council. In the world of the Bible, God was believed to reign on a glorious throne in the highest heaven, surrounded by a host of divine beings. These angels or divine beings formed the divine council, or royal court with whom God would confer when making major decisions. This assembly was privy to God's innermost confidence and the mysteries of the kingdom. In the Psalms, these angelic council members are referred to as the sons of God. Sometimes they're called the host of heaven or the army that accompanies God. When a mortal beheld this divine council, they were inducted into this sacred assembly and were given a commission to be God's messenger. Beholding this vision essentially functioned as your calling to be a prophet. Isaiah received his prophetic call in Isaiah chapter 6 by beholding a vision of the Lord sitting upon a throne surrounded by seraphim and divine beings. God then instructed him to call the people to repentance. In the Book of Mormon, Lehi also received his prophetic call by being introduced into this divine council. Being thus overcome with the Spirit, he was carried away in a vision, even that he saw the heavens open, and he thought he saw God sitting upon his throne, surrounded with numberless concourses of angels, in the attitude of singing and praising their God. After this manifestation, God commissioned Lehi to preach repentance to the people, just like Isaiah. In the case of Elijah, his ascension represents a more literal introduction into God's divine counsel. After a lifetime of service, Elijah was prepared to pass through the veil of mortality and be welcomed into the presence of God and his court for eternity. Because of Elisha's faith, his eyes were opened and he was able to witness the miraculous vision and receive his own prophetic call. By beholding God's heavenly hosts and receiving Elijah's mantle, he symbolically received the tokens calling him to prophethood. After this life-changing experience, Elisha demonstrated his new prophetic authority by recreating Elijah's same miracle of parting the Jordan River. It may be easy to think that such dramatic spiritual manifestations are reserved only for prophets, but God has given us the temple endowment to bless us with a similar experience through a symbolic presentation. We, like the prophets of old, ascend the mountain of the Lord when we attend the temple. The purpose of the temple endowment is to teach us how to enter back into the presence of the Lord, symbolized by entering into the celestial room. Participants also obtain sacred knowledge and priesthood power that equips them to be God's messengers on the earth. While only the president of the church has the prophetic authority to speak for the entire church, Each of us is given a sacred call to stand as a witness of Jesus Christ at all times and in all things and in all places when we enter into these sacred ordinances.